Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah, mashallah, with the blessing of God, I'm here to do another Quran study. This is absolutely blessing that He has allowed us to do that, and anything that good happens to us is from God. Anything that bad happens to us is from our own mistakes. So that's why it's always to appreciate God for anything that good happens. Inshallah, we are on Surah number 7, verse number 12, and I'm going to talk a little bit about verse number 11. In this Quran study, inshallah, I want to mention more about loving God, the emotional aspect of our relationship with God. Of course, as I go on, talk about the obedience, authority, respectful appreciation, and all these things as they come on. But the more focus, the more will be on love part with our Creator, and shed more light on that, and do the Quran study in the light of we loving God, and more focus on that. So here we're gonna learn about the test at the beginning. Before we go on to that, I want you to pay attention to these things, these verses, that thinking. Like when God says to the angels to fall prostrate before Adam, and we're gonna see the mistakes those were made, the understanding, and all those things along the line. And I'm just gonna kind of go through those thinking, authority, giving full authority to God, obedient. So when you think, you give full authority. When you understand, you give authority to God. That's where the obedience comes in. And the knowledge is if you look at the definition, it's the skills and information you learn through the experience. So this is the knowledge. When you apply information into your life, that becomes knowledge, intelligence, and understanding. A person or animal that is intelligent has the ability to think, understand, and learn things quickly and well. This is called intelligent. And then we get into the emotion aspect of this: love, respect, humbleness, extol. And then also we go into being appreciative. So these next verses, we're gonna read and think about these parts that we under the light of these things. And when we get to the level where our emotions are high and understand part of these verses, we need to focus on these emotions and hold on to those emotions, because I'm going to go back to the previous verses and kind of go through those verses while we are in that state of emotion. That is very important to understand, because this story is about Satan and what happened, and though that happened in the past, and that though it involves us in this situation, but what can we learn from this story at this present time? Because we are in this present time. The test is like we are in an examination hall. People are coming in and doing exam and leaving. We are sitting in the exam right now, and people are coming in individual basis. As soon as they come in, they're assigned how much time they're gonna be in that examination hall, and then they leave. So there's door that people coming in, and the doors people are leaving out. So we are in this room right now. So we need to take these learning lessons and apply it to us. It sheds so much light. So here where God talks about it, Sura 7 verse 11. When we read that, inshallah, and go forward with that. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We created you, then we shaped you, then we say to the angels, fall prostrate before Adam. They fell prostrate except Iblees, Satan. He was not with the prostrators. So all about God in here we're going to say all about God. So when God says to the angels, fall prostrate, Satan was among the angels and he refused. So what would be the thing here? We need to understand this part of the step is thinking, giving authority to God and being obedient. That's what should have been done. Like, we hear and we obey. Why did the angel fall prostrate? Because they obey God. They should. Why would we put our thinking above God? Why would we think that I know better than God? When God says something to us, we need to say yes, sir. So this is number one where we fail. Many times we read in the Quran, like we talked about the soul, the previous verses, they lost their soul, and many other aspects, many things that we read in the Quran that we logically may not make sense. What's the connection between soul and body and all these things, the tree and the heaven and all that stuff. So God is telling us in a simplified, allegorical way where we cannot understand at the present state what the actual facts are. And it's like you're trying to explain a story to a child that they cannot understand. So you change the story to a very simplified version and try to explain it to a kid so they can understand. If you tell the story exactly what it is, a person will not understand that. So here, we need to learn when God says something to us, we say, yes, sir. We hear and we obey. Like on the first cross-study, you say, when somebody says jump, you say how high. But in God's system, you don't even say how high. You say, yes, sir. That's the state of obedience. And that's where that's mistakes were made here in this part. And knowledge, if you're not going to think authoritative, obedient in this matter, then you lack education, and this is also, we need to understand that how many ways in this scripture we make mistakes based on thinking authority, obedient, and knowledge, and intelligent and understanding. How do you understand? Even if the person didn't understand, all they had to do is just fall prostrate. Because verify who's giving us the order, the most gracious, and we need to just do it. We can ask God for help, for make me understand this better, and be obedient. Take it with all our heart. So this is where number one mistake was made, where the Satan was they fell prostrate, and Satan, Iblees, he was not with the prostrators. So that was the first mistake. He was, imagine in your head that every angels, like maybe there are millions, I don't know the correct number, how many were in there. They all fall prostrate. The room, imagine, is silence. Everybody's in prostration. And there's one creature standing still. Imagine that, how disrespectful for that. Why did you do it? This is also an allegorical way to understand what was asked and how and what prostration in is, just to simplified version for us to understand that God asked them to do something. We will know the actual magnitude of the situation maybe in the hereafter, what exactly happened, or maybe at the time of death our memory may come back, and all these things can be possible. But here we need to understand that when God says something, yes, sir. Many verses in the Quran, moderate tone in the contact prayer, yes, sir. So that's why I want to go back to the previous verses. So we need to start understanding and start taking things as we go along, step by step. And we think we are smart, we are this and we are that. This is where we're going to see how Satan is miserably failing himself in this situation. And this is, so here I want you to take these words. We created you, then we shaped you. So, God is in generally telling basically, I think everybody, we shaped you and created you and shaped you. Then we say to the angel. So I think where my understanding is how God created Adam. God created Adam and he shaped Adam. So two things to understand. God is the one creating this creature and God is the one shaping this creature. Then we move forward. Then we go to the part where the test begins. He said, what prevented you from prostrating when I ordered you? He said, I'm better than he. You created me from fire and created him from mud. So this is where we understand the test begins. This is the test for him, and we are here in this life on a test. So he said, Satan is responding to God. I'm sorry. So the test begins here, and he said, God is asking, God is saying, what prevented you from prostrating when I ordered you? What prevented you? Now God is straightforward asking Satan, what prevented you? It's amazing how God is even having a dialogue with Satan. This would be a gross, injustice in a way that, how can you disobey God? God said something to you, and so God is asking what prevented you, and what's his responses? I am better than he. You created me from fire and from mud. So there's two things I mentioned, fire and mud. So based on that, he is thinking he is superior, and the mud is, not that high in quality. Maybe fire is far better. So that's the base of that. And of course, we know there's a lot of things in the background that's going on. God already knew what's going on, was in his head. This whole situation was created to prove many things, as Satan had an idea even to the point that he thought that he can be a god beside God, and those kind of things was going along, because God is the one who created Satan, and God is the one who gave him all the powers and the abilities, and on and on and on. So when too much things he was given to him, so much power, he was one of the higher ranking angel, and what happened? Ego starts to kick in, and all those stuff, that negativity starts to kick in, and he starts thinking that I can be God beside God, and many other things along the line. So when he was thinking of himself so high, instead of being appreciative to God, that God is the one who gave me all this, and being humble and loving God, instead he become himself. Something very important to learn: when God gives us something, we need to become more humble, more reverence to God. We have to go the opposite way, become more appreciative. This is the method, the formula we should acquire, instead of becoming arrogant and ego, and I am this and I'm that, I have this and I have that power. Become more humble to God. Even in this world, God gives us wealth or other things. Instead of being arrogant and ego, we need to be more humble and loving God. So this is where the mistakes being made on the way. First, disobedient, didn't follow, and now here he's objecting. He's putting his own proposal. I am the one. But think about that. Who is the one created him? God could have created Adam from mud. Think about that. Then what would be the objection? God could have created Adam with something even far superior. Then what would be your objection? There's a lot of mistakes, inshallah, we're going to note here, that to understand and then to apply to ourselves, so we can be a better obedient to God, So he himself is thinking above God. God already knew what's going to happen. Even at that point, before even humans were created, God knew who is going to heaven and who is going to hell. God already knew all this stuff. These all events that are happening is God. It's provide a system for us to understand our mistake. It's like a teacher who knows how much ability this student or that student has. The test is designed to tell them. Why does the report card is given to the student? So see, you should look at yourself. How good are you doing? So this is for us. God is telling us. We are proving ourselves where we are. And so he's thinking he's better. And I'm going to come back to fire and mud after we go through some of these verses. And then, so here, something to understand, very important. He think of himself, he's better, and this creature is creature maybe mud, just a regular, how we treat mud when it rains and there's mud on the ground, and we take it in a lower level, if you understand. But who was the source? Who ordered us? Why take anything into matter? We need to respect and love the authority, where the order came from. Remember the first part we talk about authority, obedient, thinking. So right here, Very important point was missed here. If you go to Surah 15, verse 29, it says, once I perfect him, perfect. Now, this creature may be made of mud. We can create a lot of things with something very useless, but create something far better by putting a lot of work on it. And that thing becomes very expensive, And top of that, if someone who's very powerful or respectful person does that, take something very simple and work on it and make it something really beautiful, and then people are going to say, this is very marvelous. And not only that, who did it? That all adds value to that thing. So here, God perfected that creature, Adam. Think about that. The most gracious, all power, all knowing, the supreme. He said, I perfect him. Now, where's the mud go? Where's the fire go? This creature is perfected by the most gracious. And then, next part. It's very shocking to read. And blow into him from my spirit. You shall fall prostrate before him. Spirit. Now, think about that. Honestly. Spirit of God. Okay, mud. That's one part of it. I mean, you made something, like a car. There's a lot of materials, rubber, glass, steel, aluminum, and many things are. So this creature has a lot of elements into it. He was made by mud. He was created by the most gracious. He was perfected by the most gracious. All these elements are adding up into this creature. And top of the list, what is the value of Spirit of God compared to fire or mud? I mean, can we put a value? Can we put a price tag on it? Think about that. Spirit of God into this creature. Had he missed something? Have we missed it? I have read this Quran many times. I never paid attention to this part here. Spirit of God was blown into. Well, I've read it, but not take to the extent where understand this creature has a part of that creature has a Spirit of God into it. Now God has infinite of everything. It's not like that when God blew into his spirit, there was a amount of spirit in God and then it's a little bit lesser. No, everything is infinite in God. Like if you lit a candle, and you take another candle and lit with it, the first candle does not lose any fire. That candle can lit maybe thousands of candles without losing any firepower. So God's spirit, it doesn't go down. But think about that. Have you missed this part? Yes, you are made of fire. And this creature is made of mud, but this creature also has the Spirit of God. Doesn't that put it very high value? This is where we go back to those things, thinking, authority, obedience, knowledge, intelligence and understanding, emotional love, respect, humbleness, being thankful. All these abilities, we're going to keep, all these things, we're going to keep putting those, my understanding, my intelligence, my knowledge. Look, he has Spirit of God. No, what happened? You thought, that's why our intelligence, everything is given by God. If we don't understand something, we say, yes, sir. Maybe that moment, if we were present, we didn't understand all these steps. But what we should have done, just like angels, we should have prostrate, right? Spirit of God, again, think about that. So there are like stages of understanding, obedient. He putting himself, his thoughts above God. Now he understands he's better. But God is God giving us hints in these verses. Think about that. It's not like he didn't fall prostrate. Throw him out of my kingdom, God's kingdom. Throw him, create a hell and put Satan in. God is logically speaking. The most gracious is so merciful. Even at that point, he's giving him chances to make him understand the mistakes are being made. Think about that. Fall prostrate before I create him from my spirit. The next part is even more emotional. It's the very love comes into play. Everything you put on the side, even at this point, the order, obedience, your knowledge above God, your understanding above God, fire, mud, and all that stuff. Spirit, but that all these things, one chain after chain, mistakes after mistakes. This is where he gets things very emotional. God is giving him a different angle to look at the situation, where maybe you understand your mistake, maybe you fall prostrate now. We don't know. Had he passed the limit of no point of return, maybe he gone so far that right now he cannot repent anymore. We don't know. Had he fallen prostrate at this point, even would God have forgiven him? We don't know. Could be, could not be. But listen to the logic that the conversation between God and Satan is going on. Think about those. It's very interesting. 38, verse 38, 75. He said, "Oh Satan, what prevented you from prostrating before what I created with my hand? Are you too arrogant? Have you rebelled?" Imagine this is where the love and emotion part comes in. He didn't do it. God showed him the signs, spirit. Now, God is asking you refusing what I made it with my hand? You think fire is better than mud? I even blew him from my spirit. I perfected him. I was the one created him. Skip, missed. What about my hand? I created him from my hand. Think about that. Does it have any value to you? Do you respect me to this point? Do you even care about me? Do you love me or anything? Any of those things, list after list. I have created him from my hand. Anything. It's like God himself is, putting him in a level where trying to logically explain, does it have any value to you? If I create something from my hand, does it have any value to you? Forget about Adam. Forget about mud. If you think he is created by mud, my hands touch those. This is an allegorical way. We don't know the extent of how God's hands, one hand can hold all the 7 universes. So in which way? See, a lot of things we don't understand. But God's hand touched that mud. You are being, disgusted in a way. I don't want to prostrate this thing. It's created mud. It's filthy stuff. I touched it with my hand. The Lord of the universe, the most gracious, all power, almighty, touched it in his hand. That's one thing to look at it. And you're refusing it? He could have fallen prostrate. Oh, I'm so sorry. What was I thinking? Immediately fall prostrate. No. This is really a state of emotion that, any value to you. And then, and another way to look at it is, when we create something with hand, it has a lot of value to it. How many times we say this thing is created by in the machine and the assembly line, or this piece of art was created by hand. Somebody, it's not printed on the machine. It's created by hand. I've seen some paintings where they're made painting with just lines, very fine lines, and it takes years to complete it. There's so much value to it. So it's created by hand. You can print it by computer or printer, some fancy printer, but this was. Now God is saying that I created with my hand. So when we value so much, something is made by hand, and that's one thing to look at it, made by hand. Then you learn not only this, like some famous paintings that are made by some very, very famous people. Somebody can create maybe similar kind of painting, but it was just a regular person, but still made by hand. It has value to it. But when you hear that, oh no, this painting is made by hand, not just by an ordinary person, this by that painter was very famous. Now this painting has a lot more value to it because it's made by some very famous person. Very, honorable or famous person. Oh my God, he did it. an auction that will sell for a very high price. This creature, the most gracious touched him with his hand, made him with his hand. So it's a handmade creature. It's not, well, God says kun fayakun, but this is a handmade creature. And just not by any God didn't tell any angel to go and create Adam with your own hand. Think about that. God didn't order like certain angels, create a human being with the man, and I want you to make it with your hand. He himself did it. Think about that. He himself did it. He, the most gracious, he did it himself. Think about that. Where's your logic? Mud? You're still stuck on mud. Spirit of God. Any idea on that? Spirit of God. Made by hand. Any idea of that? And many other things that we've talked about along the line. God is saying, are you too arrogant? Have you rebelled? God, God could have put him in hell. God is telling him, make reasoning, try to make him realize you are being arrogant. Not only just arrogant, too arrogant. Are you too arrogant to do this? You could have realized at that moment, even bypass hand and everything. Oh, God is telling me. Imagine if God tells me that, hey, Adam, are you too arrogant? What's wrong with you? Hey, Adam, you too arrogant? I should have fallen off my chair. Oh, God is asking, I am not only become arrogant, I'm become too arrogant. He should have fallen off right away. That, oh my God, what I have done. Have you rebelled? He could have even fall prostrate at that time. But we don't know that it would have been too far or not, but he did not. He continued. This story is written in the Quran. This is not a fairy tale. These things exactly happen word by word. We need, and then he said, therefore, you must go down, for you are not to be arrogant here. Get out. You are debased. So, this is where things starts to change. God reasoned with him. There could be, more things that God discussed. We don't know. But these are the things that are listed here, and this is what God talked to him. And other places we come across similar this story where they'll be missing pieces here and there. God telling a story, not just in one place, many places in the Quran. So this is where he was being like, get out, you are not, you are debased, for you are not to be arrogant here. There is no place of being arrogant in God's kingdom. Not, absolutely not. Only loving God, respectful to God, humble to God, highest level possible, obedient to God, appreciative to God. These are the things that our system should be with God. And then he said, look right here. He said, he asking for grant me respite until the day of resurrection. His response, still stubborn on this thought that I know better than you. In a way, this is what the thought process is. I know I'm better than him. I'm better than this person is not worthy of this and that. Putting our thoughts above God. But God says, no, this person so and so know better. That community knows better. That community knows better. Do what proof we have. Like I'm literally applying into ourselves. What we have a proof from God. backed by a miracle of 19, with the messenger of the covenant, all these things, miracles after miracles. And here you have all hear and say things. We value those things more than what God is saying here in the Quran. Straight, simple, forward. So he's objecting, he's going on, he's leading on to the next step. Not just right there and walk away. No, he's leading on to God's, like God says here, to get out. And, that would be one thing that he just walked out and out of God's kingdom. And maybe somewhere out there is living forever or something in a humiliation state of something, maybe could be, or anything like that. But he is bringing on the challenge to God. He wants to prove God. No, you're wrong. I'm going to prove it to you. This creature is not in a way that though his words are not the same, but look at the way the style is grand respite on the day of resurrection. Why is he asking that? And why this is mentioned here until the day of resurrection? Why all these things were being mentioned? Think about that. See, a lot of things we don't understand. Adam has not been sent to heaven yet. The second mistake hasn't been happened from Adam, where we were in heaven and we disobeyed God. Those things haven't happened yet. But he's already saying that. A lot of things have happened here. How did he know there will be a day of resurrection? So that's why we need to, something we may not understand. But these are things that are written here. How this happened, praise be to God. And then God is leading on, because there's a lot of reasons that the earth was created. The specific purpose that God says 51:56, that God did not create us and jinn except to worship him alone. I'm paraphrasing that verse. And a lot of things, it's very interesting to understand if you want to learn about a lot of things, why actually we were created. Praise be to God. So here's one of the lie that comes in. He says, since you willed that I go astray, he said, since you have willed that I go astray, I will scold for them on your straight path. The footnote is for 16 is Satan is a proven liar, and so are his constituents. See 236, 622, and 722. So he says, since you have willed, of course not. He's blaming on God that I go astray. It's your will. Think about that. It's not God's will. God is giving you warnings after warning. God is trying to give you hints. My spirit, my hand. God's trying to give him reasons. And then what he's saying, your will, I go astray. What a lie that is. I don't want to talk too much about 16 because I want to stay in the previous verses, and inshallah I'll start from 16 and onward, because I want to mention these verses 236 in the footnote and 622 to 23 and 720 to shed more light about why he's a liar and his constituents are how they lie. And this part and we'll shed on light, because why right now I've told you that when we build up that emotion, the understanding, the level, hold those thoughts, and we're going to go back to the previous verses quickly, just shed some light. Again, obedient, God, the one created, right? From here, God created Adam and God shaped him, created and shaped him. And then here we learn that perfected him, and God's spirit, what I created from my hands, adding list one after another. And the love emotion. Now when we analyze all these verses based on God created, perfected, Spirit of God, made by hand, all those obedient and emotional factors. What was the order? This small thing to do. Was not God said to him, go create mansions upon mansions, work hard for God asked specific thing. But because of arrogant, I'm better and this and that. What is God asking us? Now, hold all those thoughts in the beginning of this surah. Verse 3, you shall follow what is revealed to you. You shall follow what is revealed to you. This is an order from us, from God. And do not follow any idols beside him. Think about that. Are we acting just like, isn't it from him? We are rebelling. He's objecting. No, I know better. I'm made of fire and this and that and this and that. Where God is telling us, I want you to follow this book. We should fall prostrate. Yes, sir. Right? And what we do? No. We know better. God says, I want you to do 4 steps of wudu. No, wait a minute. That's not good. See, we are blowing up all those things. Obedience, love, respect, understanding, intelligence. Everything is off the chart when we put our thoughts above God. No, we know better than that. Aren't we exactly word by word acting like him? Though this instant was happening and it was a very powerful thing, but we, as a present time, we need to get as much benefit out of these stories as we can. We have to understand. Like if we look at this picture, what we were thinking? We were thinking, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Mud, what is the difference? God could create him with better. But look, God has created him with spirit of him. He put the spirit inside this body. It doesn't have any value. Oh, he created with him in hand. We're looking at his mistakes. We're saying, oh my God, how can you do this? If I were you, I would fall prostrate with angels. This was coming in our head. I would immediately, before even God finished his sentence, I would have fallen on the floor. Right? This was the thought that was coming in our head. But look what we're doing. God is not asking us to prostrate. God is asking us something specific according to our time. This is my scripture that I sent down, revealed to you. Verse 2, that you may warn with it and provide a reminder for the believers. So you may warn. And that's why I talked about this cross study is not to guide anybody, period. God, the most gracious, the only one guides, the only one. Nobody can guide, no messengers, nobody's responsible for no one. And that's the only reason. This cross study is just to put it out there as a warning and as a reminder. That's all there is. I don't debate or anything like that. In the best possible way, just deliver the message, give the message. Yeah, this is what it is. Being the best possible person, treat my servant in the best possible manner and respectful way. When you disrespect anybody in any way, you become defensive. So simple way and proper way. This is what it is with God messages. He wants us to follow his book. No, we're going to object. No, you don't know. We have to follow this. We have to follow that. This is wrong. This is not the way. I heard from somebody else that the wudu was not 4-step. We saw there's a narration and this and that this thing was being done, even though this was one of the last surahs, surah number 5, and there was not much time after that. How can things change drastically? Because that was the final commandment. Even things were being practiced before that differently, even if there was suppose. That was literally one of the last surahs, surah number 5, where the religion is completed. Even though there's so many hints into that, just like God giving the hint to spirit, the mud, the making of hand. This is one of the hints. This is the final surahs. God says, I have completed the religion. Surah number 5. How can something change after that? There's so many red flags, There's so many red flags. No, I know better than that. And then God's telling us the many community we annihilated and all. If they did what Satan, what happened to Satan, and here God is talking about those who disobey God. What happened? Annihilated, where they were asleep by a verse. When the retribution came to them, that's when they realized they were wrong, but it was too late. They blamed themselves. Indeed, we have been transgressing people. Think about that. We have been transgressing people. That's what they understand at that point. It's too late to understand. It's good to understand, but it's late. It's point of no return. We have the book. These things that we talked about. Thinking, authority, obedient, knowledge, intelligent, understanding, emotion, love, respect, humbleness, extol our Lord, being thankful and appreciative, all these things before that. And God has given us a scripture clearly, fully detailed. That's another thing with the blunder we do, that 51, verse number 51, same surah. God said, my book is fully detailed. I'm paraphrasing that verse. Same surah. What do we say? No, your book is not complete. I mean, how differently we are acting other than that. Think about that. Another thing to understand. So that's why this was. And last thing I want to talk about is in this part here is the how another thing he was wrong about. The mud, mud is made of matter, 3 elements, as we know. These 3 elements make anything from iron, gold, copper, These are the basic elements, the atom, electron, proton, and neutron, and these things. Different numbers makes a different thing. Look, this creature, the silicon that comes out of sand. How powerful computers are being built. The chips, the technology being built by these same 3 elements. Think about that. If you see the mud on the ground, if you somehow change their numbers, that can become gold or diamond or whatever it is, things can change. So he didn't even have the understanding at that point what mud can do. What mud can do, think about that. He didn't have understanding. But now, even that verse from Surah number 2, when God says to the angels, God teaches Adam the names, and he tells Adam to tell the angels the name. And when he tells angels those names, and the angels, they didn't even know what was those things. We see our electronics on all these things we have today. They didn't know it back then. Even 1400 years ago or 2000 years ago, people didn't know what matter can do. Look, matter can do today. Think about that. Everything comes out of ground, and we create so much. Man has gone to the moon with using this stuff made of earth. The earth is producing so much good stuff. They didn't even know at that time. So what the angel response were, I'm paraphrasing that part of the whole thing, that we only know what you teach us. They accept that. So if we didn't understand, we could have accepted, but he was objecting. Now he's realizing, after maybe nowadays, as Messenger of the Covenant says in 80s, as he should put his hands up and give up by this time now, that he cannot control the earth. All this stuff is a massive amount of information. If you listen to the speeches and everything else, too much information that we need to learn. Praise be to God in the mud, and then another thing, the fire. Praise be to God. Fire. Have you seen fire burning? What can we do with fire? We can cook, we can mold things and create stuff, right? But fire itself, can we create a piece of art or machinery or something with actual fire, the element? Can we do something? It burns as long as it has fuel. When the fuel is gone, the fire is gone. We even run our cars with fire, basically. When the combustion happens in the engine, when the gasoline is compressed and the spark happens, we blow it. There's a fire in it, massive fire. It pushes the piston down, and we get the fire energy, the heat energy into kinetic energy, and we move forward, right? We know all these things. But what can we do with fire? Nothing. Can we create a sculpture? It burns. But the most gracious, he kun fayakun, be in it is, he's created the jinns with fire. And they're made of fire. How can you create something with fire? You can create something with mud. It probably is not going to be alive. But with God's will, that can start walking. You can make a shape of bird, like Jesus did. And with God's leave, it becomes alive. Right? But what can we do with fire? Though even God gives a human being or someone that power, with God's leave, that creature can create something with fire, of course, but it's all happening by God. But imagine God creating a creature with fire. Think about that for a second. Think about that. So inshallah, very powerful stuff. I want to stop here and this from verse 16, inshallah. I'll start next. Praise be to God.